And yes, please, Alexander, tell us about circular human sphere.
Yeah, thank you, Inka. Thank you, Turku, for inviting me today. That's very much appreciated. Back in those days, back in I joined the circular economy movement in 2010 when I was at Cisco Systems as an employee, and I was part of the entrepreneur group of Cisco Systems, where we were looking at ways to innovate differently within the company. And one of our tasks then was to be in touch with Dame Ellen MacArthur, who was setting up the foundation. And then I realized that circular economy was going to be a huge movement, and I took part of these weekly webinars with Ellen MacArthur, and we discussed a few things. And at the time, I had finished my MBA, and I was full on into understanding social impact, the corporate movement towards more well-being to people, not just the employees, but really the customers and the communities and the targeted population. And the question I asked Ellen MacArthur was, but Ellen, what's the impact on the population? What's the impact on the people? Could circular economy potentially solve the issues of poverty in the world? And she had no answer to that because her focus was elsewhere. And I'm like, okay, if you share things, if you access goods instead of as a service, instead of acquiring them, owning them, the economy must be somehow cheaper and more accessible to the 1 billion people left out of our economic system in a linear economy. And that's how I started this thinking. And I started to read a lot of studies and books about circular economy. And then I said, okay, this is great, but we need to enforce the human dimension, and we need to enforce the fact that people have to be granted access to resources and to social equity. Otherwise, if it's this new economic model that people are telling us it is, if we don't take care of the social dimension, then we will not solve the many challenges we face. I'm not saying circular economy should do everything, but beyond circular economy, adding some kind of human sphere to it, and to some kind of thinking around what's our role in this new model and how should we go about it. We might be circular, all of us, in our VIP circle, but you're still going to have billions of migrants coming to your markets and social issues everywhere, because your system is just an economic model and it's not an ecosystemic model. So that's the thinking behind that. So to start with, well, quickly to introduce myself for those who don't know me, I am the managing director of Anthesis. This is a new role for me as an employee of this company. I'm managing the activities of Anthesis in France together with one colleague of mine. The Anthesis is an international group of experts dedicated to sustainability matters, dedicated to circular economy. And we've been created in 2013 to help companies change paradigm. Okay, we need the companies to shift into a new paradigm. And we know that these days with the virus issue is just one challenge among many others that are upcoming our ways. We know about those challenges. They have been documented. It's just that the human nature is not ready to change until often we face the wall. So that's where we come into the picture and says, guys, there might be an issue. How about increasing your resilience system? Obviously, the circular human sphere, the one that the reason why we are here today, and my side activity as a lecturer at the University of Cape Town. I used to be based in Cape Town in South Africa. And they are kindly renewing my contract with them on a yearly basis, where I teach at the Executive MBA School of the University of Cape Town, Sciences Po in Paris. Since I'm back in France, I have the opportunity to deliver some circular economy and inclusive economy modules at Sciences Po. University of Bradford, I have had some intervention there. Bradford is key to me because I live near the city of Roubaix. I will mention that today. And Roubaix is the poorest city in France, and Bradford is one of the poorest cities in the UK. And the idea is to say, can circular economy get people out of poverty cycle? And that's the question we ask Bradford as well as Roubaix in a city partnership. And then Ancet, still in Roubaix, based in Roubaix, which is the textile engineering textile school. Because textile was the northern France where I come from is the textile valley, historic textile valley back in the 19th century. Then we went into a poverty cycle and back into innovative mode through circular economy principles. So circular economy could, as you know, and as your student knows, could solve this, could solve the issues of pollution and the waste-based model on which we have made our wealth. I mean, maybe not you and me, but at least the people who have been in the managing position so far. And in fact, we have the more wealth we have created in our world today and in our bank accounts, the more waste we have generated elsewhere and pollution we have created elsewhere. So there is a strong link between the two, and this model is no longer sustainable, as you know, and this is why we are thinking about designing this economic system where waste and pollution and harmful chemicals should be designed out of our systems by innovative business models, but I'm not going to go through them in details. The question I'm asking is that, is a new economic model enough? We need this mindset shifts, as I mentioned earlier, and moving from one economic system to another economic system without considering the overall picture. I understand that we follow the natural cycles within circular economy, but as you know, and as you see, a lot of people think about circular economy as an advanced recycling system, and they still think about waste, they talk about waste management, and it's not changing enough in the mentalities, and it's already, the model is already out for 10 years, at least structured as it is today. Obviously, Walter Stahel and others have been thinking about it since the 70s, but things are very slow, and I'm a bit worried that we are not ramping up quick enough into a new shift into thinking in systems and in an ecosystemic model. So the question is, why do we want to implement this circular economy model versus another one? Is there another one? And what for? I mean, is it really worth it? Do we still want to equip the wealthy and the big companies today, or do we want to clearly make a shift and give the tool to any citizens so that they can evolve into a new model of life, whereby there will be a bit of business, a bit of social, and a bit of environmental in everyday's life. Something very different from our 8 a.m., 5 p.m. Type of life. Where will this take us to? I mean, and how will it ensure it will improve our livelihood? I mean, is the needs of the people at the core of this model? And why don't we talk more about humans in these models, and humans as the people who could sort this out by changing the way they think and by reaching out to their consciousness and empathy? And when shall we consider a solution to be truly circular, unless we embed ourselves as well within that question? As you know, and here I'm not going to go into the details of circular economy because I know your students have been exposed to that. This is about a regenerative and restorative by design model, whereby in the regenerative sphere, we will, the biological sphere, we will look at the understanding of natural cycles and how cycles in nature are being regenerative. Going back to their original state again and again, but that means that we need to slow down our economic systems and changes that we face every day in order to go along the natural cycle rhythm. And then the technical sphere, where we split the economic system into two models, your biological nutrients and the technical nutrients. And in the technical sphere, we have different business models where we will repair, maintain, share, remanufacture, and if there is no other choice, recycle elements. And if there is no other choice, we go for recycling, because I'm a proponent to say, can we see the end of recycling one day? Because it will help us innovate much faster than we do today. This is a provocative position that I took. But recycling, the more we recycle, the less we will think about innovative way to change the way we use and access goods today, because we will still rely on I generate waste in a take make waste model and recycle. And we know that our system cannot cope with the volumes of waste. So let's forget recycling as our last option for a minute. Obviously, it will be there in the next decades, and I'm not saying we should stop it now, but if we avoid thinking recycling, we will go into more innovative stages, and we will innovate much faster. And the best way to innovate is to look at nature. If we mimic their natural cycles, we will look for abundances, and we will understand the regenerative nature of the systems we belong to. This model of a tree is the best model we have, because the tree produces all these branches, leaves, and fruits, but 80 to 90% of those branches the tree doesn't need for itself, for its own survival, and not even for the survival of its offsprings. The tree does that from an ecosystemic point of view. The tree generates all those leaves and branches in order to capture the sun energies and the renewable energies around its ecosystems. And it does that to feed and to protect the birds, the insect, the fauna, the flora around in a very empathy-centered model of nourishing its surrounding ecosystem. So it's a very interesting model. And the other things that we learn from nature is that competition is the exception. It's a very collaborative model that we see in nature, species helping each other and cooperating with each other. There is only competition when there is no other choices. A bit like recycling, there is only recycling when there is no other choices. It's the same for competition. So, and the reason why competition is not seen as the best and the wisest strategy, and humans might not be as wise as a tree, but competition uses a lot of energy, and the nature goes for strategies where energy is fully optimized and is used less. So we should move away from direct competition. And this is one example of why we need to be these ecosystemic leaders and not just economic leaders. So move out of this economic sphere, because we know that if we stay in the economic models, we will still be ruled by GDP indicators, which are not recognizing the total value of what we produce every day. I mean, every day you wake up and you go to work, and it's not just about earning a salary, it's not just about generating financial return to your company. You know that you go to work because you generate far more value than just the financial return. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to work. At least I wouldn't. So we need to recognize that, and we need to evolve into that ecosystemic mode of life and of work. One way to look at it and to think like a leader of tomorrow is this brewery where from a linear point of view, you are a brewer, you produce beer and you sell beer to the market. In a circular economy mode, in an ecosystemic mode, brewery is just one activity among other activities in your ecosystem, a bit like the tree roles and function that we saw a bit earlier. Every flows and resources that comes out of the brewery is part of a wider flow of energies and resources linking the brewery with the pig farm, with a mushroom production plant, with digesters linked to other offices to collect sewage and to produce gas. With an algae basin, algae that could replace the plastic in our economies of today's. And the algae basin, once clean, purified, could lead to a fish pond where you produce fish to feed people. So brewery becomes just one activity among others. And I'm sorry, tomorrow we might be experts on a function based only, and we would be expert in providing wastewater spend grant to other market activities as we go along. Another thing that the human sphere is saying for these abundances like in nature. And if you look at our world today, we are 7.5 billion, and forecasts from the United Nations tells us that we might move from 9 to even 16 billion people on the planet tomorrow. While most of us says this is bad news, if you look at humans in terms of energy, well, we are in abundance today. These energies are renewed every day. We are ourselves renewable energy. And the question is, how about designing a model whereby some of the human energy would be taken into account into the equipment and the goods that we use every day. I mean, the best example is your bike. You cannot use a bike without human energy, but it could be for each and every equipment that we have at home. So getting the economy back to the level of a fully distributed model where relying on human energy as part of other energies, as part of other renewable energy. But the idea is to say, the more we focus on the smaller loop in the technical sphere, you recognize the different business models: share, maintain, prolong, reuse, redistribute, refurbish, remanufacture. The more we go towards the sharing model and the prolong and maintain model, where we would repair the goods thanks to human energy, the better. The more we go towards recycling, the more we generate waste and we rely on fossil fuel energies. And if we building a repair-based economy where we care for goods and we care for goods through human intervention, would mean, and including the human sphere here, would help us to see where abundance is coming from. And if abundance is human energy, therefore we will have to decrease tax on labor, on human labor, because we need to access and to tap into human labor in tomorrow's economy, while increasing taxes on resources that are becoming scarce. And there are models out there that have calculated what it takes to do that, and they are very well balanced models and making sense for governments around the globe to decrease tax on human labor and increase tax on resources that are becoming scarce to better protect them, obviously. There are another aspects that the human access is a proven model through the human development model of Professor Amartya. It's a model that has been studied for many years, that if you don't give access to the people, to the communities of this world, to resources, they might not thrive. They might not be able to live a life of decency. The same for social equity. Social equity is a must in today's economies as well as tomorrow. And I'm not saying we need to go into the old communism models or capitalism, social capitalism. I'm saying there is a third way, there is a third pathway towards a new model where we include environmental cycles into our daily decisions, as well as include the social equity part. Because again, a service-based economy is far more equitable than a goods-based economy. I need to buy that car, I need to buy those kitchen gears, I need to buy those equipments. If I don't have the money in my pocket, I cannot access the ownership of those products. On the other hand, a service-based economy, if reasonable in terms of the price tag, I can access goods in a very more equitable way. And the fact of the matter is that we know the limits to growth study from the 70s. There is a very earlier recent studies, which is called the HANDY model funded by the NASA in the US. And HANDY model stands for Human Nature Dynamics. And they have studied the dynamics and the fact that we don't grant access to commoners here, to the people, so communities and workers. Here in blue, the commoners below the carrying capacity orange line. The fact that that they don't have access to resources anymore, they might disappear. And that's the issue with our model, is that the less resource accessed by these commoners, the more the resources are kept by the elites. So what we call the 1% of the wealthiest people today, the more chances the commoners will collapse. And this has been calculated with refined data. We see here that nature collapses as well, but nature recovers. Okay, nature will recover while the commoners will disappear. So we're talking here about the weakest population in the world, those populations who do not have access to those resources. And the fact is that if you dig into in-depth knowledge of circular economy, you realize that social equity and access to resources is not guaranteed. Let's take an example of the Apple phone. I mean, you know that to access Apple, you need to have licensed shops. You need to buy the phone and to go back to the shops in case your phone is broken or needs some kind of repair. At some stage, Apple is telling you that you cannot repair anymore the phone. So the phone is going to be sent to the US and to China to be dismantled by a robot, Liam. And that robot doesn't create any job. Obviously, there's some jobs to develop the robot, but you don't access human energy, which is available, as we explained earlier. And you just have these license centers and these shop centers in your country that creates 10 jobs per shop. And that's about it. So there is no job creation in that model. And the resources, the phone are circular. Everything can be dismantled, repair, fix, maintain, and reuse in a new version of a phone. But every resource is kept within Apple. So you have a monopoly of resources, and circular economy does not tell us how do we create open source access to resources. So this is an issue, and this is what we call the closed approach, closed circular economy approach. This is a circular economy, but no job creation, no sharing of resources, and we saw earlier this is an issue for human development. On the other hand, you have this fair fund model, which is an open approach, so circular economy type 2. And this Fairphone model is made, first of all, with components that are guaranteed, not coming from geographies where there are some human challenges and child work and so on. And at the same time, they are providing you with the phone. They do two things. When they ship millions of units of these Fairphones to your country, all the resources are open source. So the resources of your phone becomes the country's stock of resources. They can tap into those resources, into the lithium, the cobalt, the aluminum, any component of the phone. Just imagine beyond the phone, the millions of units of oven, flat screen TVs, and so on and so forth, all those tablets and screen, to have access to those resources in an open source manner. And at the same time, what Fairphone does, beyond urban mining activities, in a more accessible way, because every component can be very accessible and we just have to unscrew them, they create businesses. They create local activity. You go down your flat and all of a sudden you are not going to repair the phone yourself on a Sunday morning because you have other things to do. But once you go down your flat, you discover that there's plenty of repair centers that are very keen to repair your Fairphone because it's easy to repair. Each and every parts can be repairable, can be ordered online. They are very cheap. They are not very expensive to change the screen. It's between 11 to 17 euro. And basically, they are very keen on changing your phone and upgrading it and repairing it. And maybe in 6 months, those repair shops will tell you, oh, you want to adapt your camera to a better camera, more refined, with better specificities. I have developed one for you because it's open source and I can upgrade those parts. So they create activities in your country, leading to many leakages, as we say. So they create a healthy ecosystems, like in the model of the tree that we discussed before. And at the same time, they grant you access to resources. So this is what the human sphere is promoting, an open approach to resources while creating social activities and jobs in your countries. Another example is this city of Roubaix that I mentioned earlier. We work with the city of Bradford in the UK, where we need to go back to the basic need of the people, the need for food, the need for having a roof, the need for some kind of reaching to some kind of level of happiness, because we grant people access to local resources. And this is what happened with the city of Roubaix and their zero waste project. Again, city of Roubaix is one of the poorest cities in France. And they have managed, by asking the citizens their participation into sharing their knowledge, their understanding of how to go about producing and creating its own soap, its own washing machine powders, sharing some tricks. And the city was also granting access to these people to shared gardens so they can grow their fruits and vegetables themselves. They were sharing the best practice. There are conferences and workshops led by citizens who share their knowledge about doing their products themselves. So they decrease the daily expenses of their life. And since they don't earn much money, now they have a decent way of living, even though they don't earn as much money as people who are in a higher earning range. And all of a sudden, it creates a very good atmosphere through the city, and just by addressing people's needs. And we all know that we need to decouple, so to delink the economic growth from resource intake. And we also need to reduce our consumption patterns. And this is the best way to do it, is to include the people and to focus on people's needs, the needs for food, the needs for roof, the needs for basic services, instead of going into preserving and protecting overconsumptions. So the basics, if you have one thing to remember from the human sphere, is this search for abundance. Where are the abundances in the system through flows of energies and stocks of resources? And as I explained, humans are abundant. We move from 7.5 to 10 billion people. Therefore, this is the new stock and flows of energies that we need to study, and we need to take into account. I'm just saying, how about adding that sphere into our system thinking? Because from that sphere, there will be a lot of innovations coming from and a lot of ideas. And there are three things that we have in abundance in the human sphere. The first is that we are nature. We are ourselves part of nature. It's just that in Western economics, we have separated nature from humans. Humans and nature are just the same. They are part of the same system, but we tend to forget about it. So I'm not saying we should still split humans from nature. I'm just saying we are nature. We need to recognize that, and we need to reconnect with nature in a full-fledged manner. We are also empathy. We have empathy, and we need to connect our empathy sides to our consciousness in order to get back to the basics of a sharing economy, working collaboratively. And I would say somehow in the bad news of today's coronavirus, we see that empathy is going back as something that we forgot we had. And then we are energy. We are endless energies. And every day we renew our energy, and we have a brain energy, we have knowledge, we have our hands and our body as providing energy. So we should look into that as solving the issues of today's world. So I'm putting this in biological sphere and the technical sphere, not to say that this is a human-centered model. It's not like that. Just to say that we are part of nature, and we need to reconnect with that nature. And we are also the solution to a technical sphere that tends to degrade as we go about it with the issue of sorry, I'm missing the word here, but our technical sphere quality of the stock is disappearing as we use it, and we need to care about it into a repair-based model. So the idea is to define 4 strategies here. We are nature, so our 2 strategies in relation with the biological sphere. We should adapt as circular beings, and we should monitor evolutions, what's coming our way from climate change, the pandemics, and answers to that are coming from IPCC, the experts, from donut economies, and so on. So we understand the objective, where the safe and just space for humanity is, and we need to go there as a dashboard approach, managing how we should behave towards that and adapt as circular beings. And then in adapting as circular beings, just to be clear, this is about energy, human energy, to rebuild our ecosystems, natural ecosystems, and we have proof of that. Some experts have been regenerating mountains and forests, and rivers came back, and the fauna and flora came back to desertic landscapes. And humans are also humus. The origin of humans is coming from humus, and the humus is the soil, and humans is the humus for nature and for future of soil. So just to be clear that we are also resources to nature, not resources to the economy as the old good way of thinking, but resources to nature. And then in the technical sphere relation, we should value all humans, and humans should be at the center of preserving the value of all humans, and in a way valuing their energies coming from the humans as a way to solve the issue of the technical sphere quality, which is disappearing. And then advancing humanity is basically the equation between how much do we adapt with nature, how much do we value humans, And this will help us advance humanity towards full consciousness, consciousness of us being humans and being natural beings. And the more we will adapt to nature, the more we will adapt within our technical sphere, the better we will advance humanity towards a safer and just space. And the idea here is that the more we care for nature, the more we adapt the human and nature dynamics, the more the biosphere will grow. And this is the only sphere that should grow here today, the biosphere. We should grow the capacity. And the more we move away from outside loops in the technical sphere, i.e. the recycling activity, the more we move towards smaller loops whereby we have more human energy into repairing activities, the better for the technical sphere and the slower the pace of preserving this technical sphere. So in a nutshell, this is where abundance is. Humans are part of together with nature, of the regenerative cycles, and we need to account for them in our equation of can we solve these issues of life on Earth. And at the bottom of the slide, you see that here you can design endless regenerative activities in relation with nature, as well as in the technical side of things, create restorative jobs if we decrease the tax on human labor and increase the tax on resources that are becoming scarce. The same goes, and I will go quickly here because time is running, but the same goes if you insert that human sphere together with the SDGs. Usually there are academic surveys and studies about circular economy and the SDGs, and we can address about 5 to 7 SDGs today, starting with SDG 12, but there is also SDG 5 and 6 and others. But the idea is to say, are we happy with our next economic model to address 5 to 6 SDGs, or do we have an issue here because we are not fully aligned with what we expect from the next model? So if circular economy is our next economic model, I might not be 100% happy about just addressing 5 to 7 SDGs. So the question is, can we also include the social dimension, the fact that we, as part of the design, and I'm talking here about systemic thinking, of the design of the systems, not only designing out pollution and harmful chemicals and waste, but also designing out the fact that this world is completely inequitable, and the fact that this world is not granting access to resources to communities, into a world where we say no to poverty, but from the DNA, from the way we design the economic system, saying not only there is no physical waste, solid waste and other type of waste, but there is no pollution that we should accept in tomorrow's economic system, but we should not accept as well poverty and people outside of it, which encompasses all human beings, and we should revalue those human beings with the 3 approaches that I've explained from the human sphere here. And to do that, and if we do that, with those 4 proposed strategies, well, we address all the SDGs. And we address all the SDGs, but I don't want to address the SDG 8. Why? Because SDG 8 is still the belief of economic growth, eternal economic growth, as Greta Thunberg would say. And SDG 12 is not an SDGs that we want to reach out to in today's world. So that's the thinking behind the human sphere, is that if we include the human dimension, which seems to be missing from that circular economic model, we might as well be able to address all the SDGs. And then we worked with some professors and researchers, academic researchers into this human sphere approach, and saying, how about aligning circular economy with human development and granting access to resources to more people on the planet? And we came up with this framework. And this is an official academic research that has been done and is published on Elsevier. If you Google making the circular economy work for human development, you have access to that paper. And basically, you recognize all four human sphere strategy here. And basically, we ask the question: can we align the human development model with the human sphere? And we came up with this. We came up with, first of all, governments needs to design macroeconomic policy framework for sustainable resource use. So granting access to sustainable resources to their people, to their citizens. Therefore accessing equal access to common pool of resources as a macroeconomic framework for each and every country in this world. And then moved on to defining not only circular but inclusive business models. And this inclusive business model would lead to, this is embedded into the ecosystemic model of tomorrow, the model of life of tomorrow. It's not just an economic model, it's a model of life. Everything is embedded within it, the economic, the environmental, the health of the people, as well as the life of the people. And this is to preserve the life on Earth. And then moving down to circular economy at community level initiatives, and this sense of resilience and belonging that we recognize now that we have a pandemic issue. And then lastly, the last circle, in order to strengthen the livelihood of the people and the lifestyle of the people by focusing on individual well-being, but individual well-being not just as individuals, but individuals as part of a wider community. The one doesn't go without the other. And then all of these actions are part of this cascade of strengthened capabilities and choices that are defined in the United Nations Human Development Model, as explained by Professor Amartya. So now this is the first paper that connects human development together with circular economy. And this is the first paper that talks about circular economy for the goods, for the livelihood of the people in order to preserve life on Earth and to grant access to resources to any communities in the world. So that's, I think we have made some great inroads in these discussions, and hopefully it will have a positive impact on the choices that countries decide to design from a circular economic principle, not to forget this social equity and granting access to resources. And this is especially key, and I know there is a lot of interest in Latin America, in Africa, where they understand this aspect of the human dimension a bit more than in economies where fossil fuels have been there for many decades, and resource efficiency has become the ultimate goal, forgetting the effectiveness of systems. And last but not least, for us to reach out to this donut economy, safe and just space for humanity, but from a circular standpoint with the human sphere embedded, whereby we have about 10 outcomes that we need to measure, monitor, ensure that we focus on regenerated soils, improve life and health, make sure that we decouple the biological nutrients from economic growth, make sure that we embed humans as a function, what human role we see in order to grow the biosphere again, make sure that the human roles are valued, and we increase the value of human in a great way, and therefore decrease the value of, increase the value of resources that are becoming scarce by increasing taxes there. Make sure we decouple the use of technical nutrients from economic growth. We avoid recycling as much as possible, because to recycle, we need to create waste. And last but not least, come up with new ways of measuring human advances from our adaptation to the ecosystems which we belong to, and from the valuation of humans into the technical sphere. This is it for the presentation today. In a nutshell and as a summary, please look for abundances in our system. And abundances come from regenerative cycles. Regenerative cycles are the natural cycles as well as the human cycles, because we regenerate every day. Like nature, we are endless resources and endless energies, and we need to value those in order to slow down the pace of the use of our technical sphere and the technical nutrient. And the slower the pace of the use of this technical nutrient, the more we will focus in that human nature dynamics where life systems would be preserved. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.